Welcome back, darlings. In this video, I'm going to see if I can restore this trim without polishing it. I'm going to do that with ceramic coatings. Now that's because nearly every Mercedes that's about 10-ish years old and has this metal trim around the windows, or the Midnight Black Edition, probably has a touch of mange about it around now. So, ceramic coatings, yes. A lot of other videos about restoring them talk about polishing them. Now, the issue with that is that it makes it shiny. That isn't how it comes out of factory. I wanted to look at it as factory fresh as possible, and that is satin. So, the filling abilities of the ceramic coating should help. I'm going to use 3. I can use Infinity Wax Synergy Light V2, Synergy 2, and some Geon trim, which I have got left. It's a much thicker coating. Let's see how they get work. So I'm just going to give it a quick panel prep here. I'm using IPA with water that's mixed at 1 to 20. When it's wet here, this is what it should look like when it's coated. So it'll give me an idea of how good the result should be. Now I'm just going to dry it off and you can kind of see what it's like at the moment. So this is what we're working from, and we're going to hopefully get towards that wet look when it's finished. And you can see it's quite etched, but if you look at this little bit on the end of the door there, that's where it's touched. So it's a bit shinier because it gets polished more literally by your clothes and your hands. I'm going to do 3 sections. I'm going to start off with the Synergy Light V2 here, the Synergy 2 in the middle, and the Geon trim at the end there. So first off, let's crack on with some Synergy Light. This is the new formulation, and one of the big things about it is it comes off far easier. So I'm using cotton wool applicators here, just because they're disposable. I'm doing a small area to test. Makes life a lot easier. It's going on nice and easily, and you can see just how much of an effect it's already having. Like if it stays to look like that by the end, I think we've got a good solution to the problem. You can see there's a few high spots though. Probably had a bit too much on the applicator, plus these aren't the best way of applying it. If I was doing it all over, I'd use one of the micro-suede applicators. But just leveling that off and giving it a chance to get more even coverage. So that's where we are with the Synergy Light V2. And now it's time for some Synergy 2. So applied in the same way, it's a different applicator, so there's no cross-contamination going on there. I'm using Synergy 2 because I use it for most of the paintwork coatings that I do. It's great to apply outside. It's got this built-in sacrificial hydrophobic layer, so it will cure outside. Once it's gone off for at least an hour, then it can get wet and rained on, which is really useful. So I thought if I could have one product that would work for everything, that would be really good. However, this is one of those things, it doesn't really make a massive difference on plastic trim when I've applied it to that, whereas I found Synergy Light genuinely does. So I'm interested to see. And now finally, I'm using some of the very remnants of a bottle of Geon trim that I've got. This coating is far thicker and mostly out of frame, which isn't very helpful, is it? So apologies for that, I only realised when editing. But yeah, it's a far thicker coating. I love it. It works really well. I've got it on my van. It's been on there for a year, and it looks like it's been on there for a day. So thicker to apply, also grabbier. Far grabbier when rubbing it off or levelling as well. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm levelling. Normally I'd use a shorter pile cloth than this, but this is an old one I need to chuck away, and for this test it's relevant. I'm rolling over the cloth. I'm using a different part of it every time I'm levelling a different product, so I'm not getting any cross-contamination that way. And my initial reaction was I could see at the top that there was bits I'd missed with the Synergy 2 for sure, a little bit with the Synergy Light as well. And it felt like quite a lot had come off, way more than normal, so it hadn't bonded as well as it would on paint straight away, perhaps. Or perhaps it's a case of you could put it on and just leave it there to cure, without having to level it much, as long as you've got a nice even application to start with. And it definitely looked like, of all of them, that the Synergy 2 hadn't bonded at all in comparison to the others. So I reapplied some, and now you're going to literally watch ceramics dry. So it's about like watching paint dry. I gave them 3 minutes to cure, which is far longer, not cure, but to be before levelling, which is far longer than I would normally. They flash quicker than that. I put a little bit more Synergy Light on as well to make that even and fair. And at the end of the result here, I was like, okay, it has improved and it has stayed on better this time, but the Synergy Light looked okay. The Synergy 2 didn't look as good as that, and the Geon trim definitely looked the best here. Now, fast forward a week. This is the untreated bit. I wanted to give you a comparison. So this is part of the door that hasn't been done, and then we're drifting in here to the bit that has. Synergy light at the beginning, Synergy 2 in the middle. You can see there's that bit at the top where it really hasn't bonded well at all. Bad application maybe. But looking at the Synergy light here, I think that is quite a bit better than the Synergy 2 in terms of its overall look. Even the bottom part where it has bonded. But neither are as good as the Geon trim. That to me is quite telling. The hydrophobics, and it rained a bit in between. Yeah, you see, this Synergy 2 hadn't bonded as well. Alright, so this is untreated. This is what it was like originally. So I wanted to show you that again to remind you of where we were at and where we've gotten to. It's really important to see, and you can even tell that this back piece on the right hand side here is worse than other parts of the car, and it's both on the same sides. Don't really know why. And this is what we've ended up with. You can see like a kind of hard-ish line between where the Geon trim was, but let's look at it in a little bit more detail. Okay, so we can clearly see in the middle here, this bit, we'll say clearly, you can see that this bit here in the middle where the Synergy 2 was, looks a bit different from the others. I say the Synergy 2 did not work as well. There's definitely like a sort of hard line you can see there between the Geon trim and the Synergy 2. And when I'm looking at it here, it's much harder to pick up, but it looks as if the Synergy light, which sort of finishes there, is better than the Synergy 2, but it's not as good as the Geon trim. So to answer that question, can you restore the look of your trim and preserve it with a ceramic coating rather than polishing? I would say yes. It's not going to be 100%. I think we can see that here, but it is a drastic improvement. And I reckon if you did 2 coats of the Geon trim, it would look really, really good. So that would be my advice. If you're going to polish it, you should ceramic coat it anyway to give it the chemical resistance, because it's often what causes a lot of these issues. So you'd buy the Geon trim anyway, if you're in a state that needs it. I would then go and say, give it a go with just that first, because to me, that gives it enough of an improvement to be able to go, yeah, job done. Hope that was useful. Thanks very much for watching. See you in the next one. Oh, go and like and subscribe and maybe watch that one. See you soon.